happy Wednesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are talking about storms across the Great Plains. We're talking about, Rockies area. We're talking about storms across the Midwest as well, and we're talking about storms in Kansas City today. So we've got a little bit of everything on the radar for today, and we actually just saw a tornado warning pop up. Okay, I'm looking at it on my radar over here, and that is for, what is this, Dodgeville, Wisconsin, and that is a tornado warning, excuse me, and okay, Southern Iowa County in central Wisconsin, and that goes until 12:45 this afternoon. So I just wanted to get that out there before we started this forecast today. Either way, let's talk about Colorado, let's talk about Kansas City, let's talk about Chicago. Colorado in the bull's eye for hail today. Yes, it is one of those setups that we say Colorado could get hit. Now, Kansas City also in the path for storms today, and Chicago, but that Chicago threat is less of a hail threat and it's more of a tornado and a high wind threat today. So we do have a tornado threat across the Midwest, and we've already seen that. We do have a tornado warning right in the southern to central portion of Wisconsin right now. So we'll get to that here in just a few minutes. Let's talk about what we saw yesterday. And while we're talking about what we saw yesterday, put your weather questions and comments in the comments section, and we will hopefully be able to tailor this forecast to where you guys are watching from. Alrighty, yesterday, 24-hour storm reports here. It started out as a hail event. You know, we saw several impressive hailstones across portions of South Dakota and portions of Nebraska. We did get a 2-incher on the board yesterday, so our forecast verified yesterday. Always a good thing whenever we can say that we were right. The forecast that you saw yesterday was correct. But it really turned into a wind threat as we headed into the late night hours. There was questions about Omaha. What would Omaha get yesterday? I said the hail risk was going to be low and it would turn into a wind threat, and that is exactly what we saw. We saw a few tornadoes yesterday, but for the most part, hail and wind was our big factors. Now today, we have a setup across the central portion of Colorado, kind of splitting it right down I-25 there. Right across Denver, we will be able to see a risk for large hail today, and then places to the north whenever we go a little bit closer to that low pressure system. Then off to the west, we have another risk for storms, which we are already seeing coming to fruition today. We are already seeing that tornado warning across central Wisconsin. That low pressure system with a little disturbance down to the south is going to start off these storms today. And Chicago, I have a direct timeline for you. Kansas City, I have a direct timeline for you. Denver, I have a direct timeline for you as well. So we will get down into the nitty-gritty details of each of these big cities. Alrighty, moving on to current conditions. It's quiet across the Northeast for now. We do have a wind risk out there today. It's quiet across southern Florida, but do you see that little disturbance that's going on right here that's just off the Florida panhandle? This is our tropical disturbance. You may have seen it on social media. Lots of people have been talking about this. It's not Dexter yet. However, if we could get this thing, it's kind of sitting in the panhandle of Florida right now, we could get it to move back into the Gulf, then we have a pretty good chance for that to intensify. If it stays over land, it's going to be cut off from a lot of this moisture, and it will just stay a disturbance, and it probably won't upgrade to a tropical storm. Well, we'll talk about that as well at the very end of the forecast here. Alrighty, current temperatures. Ooh, that cold front is doing its job. 68 across Denver today, 66 in Minneapolis, but you go in front of the cold front and it is a lot warmer, sitting in the 80s out in Oklahoma City and Kansas City. So we've already kind of broken down where we're expecting storms today, but here's a look at your Storm Prediction Center risk. We always say don't underestimate a slight risk, don't underestimate a marginal risk. These could still be very impactful events. So we have a slight risk out in Chicago, a marginal risk for Kansas City, and a slight risk out in Denver as well. Tomorrow it becomes more of a wind event out on the East Coast, and hey, Friday, we don't have a risk yet on Friday. I bet we will, but we don't right now. Okay, let's go to your significant hail model. Now, as you saw, we do have that slight risk out in Chicago, but what you're going to see here is we're seeing these milky white colors in our significant hail model, small hail. If any hail at all, small hail. Where do we see the largest hail sizes? That will be out in between the southern portion of Wyoming into northern Colorado. So let's zoom down into Denver and let's get a look at those largest hail sizes. Again, just hugging I-25, most of those storms will start to the west of I-25 and then track to the east. Best chance for large hail will be just to the north of Denver, southern Wyoming, southern portion just to the south of Casper, Wyoming, right along I-80 there. Now what we're watching for here is up to tennis ball size hail today. Yes, tennis ball size hail, you heard that correctly. I think that's a very low chance as you get into places like Denver itself. Probably to the north of Denver, you're gonna have a higher chance to get those larger hail sizes. So let's take a look at your official hail forecast. From Cheyenne all the way down to Denver, you can see that area highlighted in red. That is going to be your largest hailstone, I think up to tennis ball size hail today. Widespread tennis balls? No. I think it'll be pretty isolated. More widespread golf balls to ping pong ball size hail today. And you could see that as you get farther down into Denver, into Pueblo, and then off to the east as we head into the eastern side of Colorado. As you head farther into Kansas, those hail sizes are most likely to go down. We are talking about maybe quarter, maybe $half size hail today. Now the exception here, and I think it's pretty conditional, is as you get a little bit farther off to the east into Kansas, some of our models want to bring in some larger hailstones. Now, it was not a very consistent agreement with models across the board, so I left that still in that quarter to $half size hailstones today. Could we get some very isolated larger hailstones in this area from Topeka to Kansas City? Yeah, I think it's absolutely possible, and we'll break down that timeline here in just a few minutes. Going off to Chicago, Peoria, Milwaukee, Wisconsin now, we are talking about the potential for hail. I left it in a low risk today. I think smaller hailstones are going to be more likely across the Midwest. You know what is more likely across the Midwest? That tornado risk. It's a level 1 in Colorado, but it's a level 2 as you head farther up to the north and west, or north and east into places like Wisconsin, Illinois, and the northeastern portion of Iowa. So there's your level 2 risk just outside of Chicago, northern Illinois, central to southern Wisconsin, level 2, moderate risk. That means several tornadoes are possible for today. So these storms that are initializing now, on my timeline said 1 o'clock, so the storms are initializing a little bit earlier than that. We could see several tornadoes today, and we are already seeing that with that tornado warning in central Wisconsin right now. Alrighty, let's move on to that wind risk today. Strong to extreme winds are likely today. Very similar to yesterday, we are seeing 75 to maybe 80 mile per hour wind speeds. Again, I don't think that those 80 mile per hour wind speeds are going to be widespread enough to warrant that second layer on here, that darker color. But here you go, here's your wind speed risk for today. I think that honestly, I would go back and I would raise this to an either moderate or high risk for high winds today from Peoria to Milwaukee, including Chicago here. I would probably up that a little bit. And then you can see some strong winds farther out to the east as you go into the Midwest and even into portions of the East Coast. You're gonna see some scattered storms today. Flooding risk is on the board, but I think it's more of that high wind risk, 65 to 70 mile per hour winds as you get into places like Columbus, Pittsburgh, Rochester, New York. Alrighty, moving on. And before we move on, do we have any specific questions on the board quite yet? No specific questions. Let me know if you have a specific area that you are watching for today. Ooh, we've got Robert on here. Robert and I have been messaging, and he has been asking about that Colorado hail. We talked about it. What day was that? It was just a few days ago, and I said, wait until later in the week, and Colorado should be in the path for hail. So, I know a lot of people are excited about Colorado hail today. And we've got a great question from Adam. When does Denver get hit? I have a Denver specific graphic talking about timing, talking about hazards today. That is going to come up in about 2 graphics from now, so give me just a minute to get to that. Here's an overview of your radar for today. You can see those Denver storms coming in afternoon and evening. We'll get into timeline. Very similar for Chicago as well. Kansas City maybe a little bit later in the day. Moving on to places like Colorado and Wyoming. You're going to see storms initialize within the next hour or 2. Storms will start out just to the west of I-25, moving into central Colorado, stretching up into southern Wyoming. These few initial storms in the afternoon and just before dinner time, those are going to be your hailers. As we head a little bit later on into the evening hours, you're going to start to see these storms collapse as they get closer to the Nebraska state line, and then it'll be more of a wind event as you get out into Kansas. Now moving into your city-specific forecast. I told you I had a breakdown of Denver. 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock this evening. Again, starting out to the west, we've got a few isolated storms at first. These are the ones that I want you to keep an eye on. Again, this is just an hour from now at 1:30 Central Time, 12:30 Mountain Time. These storms, your lunchtime, and that could be rainy, will continue to track across I-25. Now, you may have 2 rounds of storms here because of the scattered nature of these storms. It just kind of depends on where they form. Do they form to the south? Do they form to the west? That is something that models cannot pinpoint quite yet. So again, these storms will continue to track to the west. Again, you could see another round of storms maybe up to the north as we head into the afternoon and evening hours, closer to that evening commute. Now, what about your max hail size here? We're talking about ping pong ball size hail. That is the max hail size. That will be pretty isolated. That's not going to be a widespread event, probably. Denver can surprise you. The chance for 1-inch size hail, I have that at a level 2, but honestly, I could go level 2, level 3, kind of in between. It's just the scattered nature of these storms. You have to really hit the bullseye, right, to get that level 3, level 4 risk. So I put it at a level 2 today. I think you could make an argument to go a little bit higher there. Chance for larger than ping pong ball size hail, probably not. I think if you go up to the north, you could see that larger hailstone. Up to tennis ball size hail, you get down into central Colorado, your hail sizes are going to be a little bit smaller. And really it's just the lapse rates. How fast do these storms go up? What is your updraft speed? I'm not going to get into all the science here. Again, 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock this evening. Alrighty, let's move on. I think we go into Kansas City next. Here we go. Now Kansas City, we have 2 rounds of storms for you. I put your hail sizes max 1.5, so that's that ping pong ball size hail. Now, this will be extremely isolated and very conditional. I think that you have a much better chance to see 1-inch size hail, so we're talking about quarters here. Do we not have any radar? Oh, there you go, for Kansas City. So I have about 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock for your first round of storms. It'll be pretty isolated, most likely just to the north of you. Most models want to take these storms just to the north. It'll be very isolated again. But a more widespread risk for storms will come in through the overnight hours. Holy moly, that looks like a flood risk. You are going to see some heavy downpours in this area. You are also going to see a small risk for hail, okay? Small risk for hail in the overnight hours, better risk in the evening hours. And you're going to see some strong wind with this, so this could wake you up early tomorrow morning between about 4 and 6 o'clock. If you are an early riser, it could impact your morning commute. Moving on to Chicago now, where we do have a tornado risk for today. We're talking about that tornado risk and that high wind risk here. That hail risk is going to be very, very low for Chicago. Your storm timeline here between 1 and 8 o'clock this evening. And let's go to Chicago. Let's talk about the timeline. Here's your radar. We already have a tornado warning right in this area to the south of I-94. So storms are already popping up. I had the timeline 1 to 8. Obviously, storms started a little bit earlier than that. Storms will continue to track to the east, right along I-94 between about 1 and 5 o'clock this evening. It'll become more of a Chicago risk later on this evening. We're talking about dinner time into the late evening hours. You can see that we've got a linear storm path here, so we've got a line of storms that stretch all the way up from the Great Lakes all the way into Chicago, kind of paralleling I-55 here. So if you do have any evening plans, you're headed out to dinner after the evening commute, yeah, you could get rained on. I think that's absolutely possible. These storms will continue to track to the east into places like Michigan through the overnight hours. There's your wind risk. You can see several lines and several rounds of storms out through the Midwest and through the East Coast, and that's where we have that high wind risk for today. There you go, and there's your forecast today. Any questions? Currently in Cheyenne, Wyoming, what are you guys thinking about the forecast for today? I have a look, and I'm going to go over to my computer, and I'll bring up a graphic for Cheyenne. Take a sip of water here. I don't know if you guys can hear it or not, but I'm gaining my voice back slowly but surely. It's taking a while for it to fully come back, so you have to bear with me in this raspy voice right now. Cheyenne, Wyoming, yes, we have a really good chance for some large hail in the southern portion of Wyoming today. So what we're looking at here, I have it in the high risk for up to tennis ball size hail. If there was an area that I would pick for larger hail today, I would say northern portion of Chicago into the southeastern portion of Wyoming, Cheyenne, just right in the middle of that there. Really good chance for hail today. You could see some high winds. You have a very low tornado risk as well. And if we go into your timeline, oh, too many graphics. Let's go back. Give the computer a minute to catch up. If we go into your timeline, we're talking about mainly afternoon to evening storms. Once you go to bed, these storms will be out of your area. There you go. Storms forming, I think I had like the 1 o'clock time zone today, 1 o'clock time for central time zone. So do the math, push that back to, maybe within the next hour or two, you're gonna start to see these isolated storms pop up right along I-80 and 25. Probably starting to the west of 25 and then tracking to the east. You also may get several rounds of storms in your area, again, because of the scattered nature of these storms. By the time you go to bed tonight, these storms should be out of your area and you can sleep peacefully. Any other questions before we move on? Because we do want to talk about that hurricane update. Omaha, Nebraska. Ooh, and it's not, usually Colin asks about Omaha, Nebraska, so we've got a different person asking about Omaha today. Let's go. I want to start with this graphic for Omaha. You guys aren't a flood risk. Are you guys even included in the risk today? No, you're out of the risk for today. I was about to say, I think it's to the south of you guys. You could get some showers and storms that could increase that flood risk. It's a level 1 flood risk, but you're out of the actual risk for today. What about tomorrow? Yeah, you guys are out of the risk for tomorrow as well. So the severe risk for Omaha, very, very low. Alrighty, moving on to that flooding risk, because I do want to talk about the flood risk for today. We have flood risks anywhere from the central portion of Kansas, actually most of Kansas is included, including Kansas City right here, northern Missouri, including the southern portion of Wisconsin, northern Iowa, and Chicago in that flood risk as well. But I actually want to take you down to the south. So I want to take you into the southern portion of the southeastern portion of the U.S. here, right along the Gulf. What we're watching for here are some heavy rains over the next few days from a system that is slowly meandering into Louisiana. And actually it's sitting right off the coast, or technically in the panhandle of Florida right now. What we're going to see is we're going to see an increased flood risk as we head into Thursday and Friday. So lots of rain in this area, over and over and over. And so you may think 2-3 inches of rain isn't that impressive, especially in an area that gets rain quite often. But if you get 2-3 inches of rain every single day, your soils are saturated, there is no place for that water to go, and where does it go? It runs off into the roadways. So we do have a high risk for flooding on Friday. Let's talk about why this is happening. So what we're going to talk about is what a lot of people are already calling Tropical Storm Dexter. No, Tropical Storm Dexter does not exist right now. It is not a tropical storm at this moment. What this is it's a disturbance. It's a disorganized area of storms that is rotating in the panhandle of Florida right now. This will continue to meander off to Louisiana, the coast of Louisiana. Now, it could take several directions. Does it go over land and just hug the coast? If it does, it probably will not intensify to a tropical storm. It will remain unnamed, or a tropical depression. Now, if it goes into the Gulf, yeah, we have a really good chance to see that storm intensify into a tropical depression or a tropical storm, and it will be named Dexter. That is the next on our list. Now, right now, the National Hurricane Center gives it a 40% chance to upgrade and intensify into something more organized to actually name it within the next 2 days. I think 2 to 5 days is our timeline here. As this storm, if it can get into the Gulf, then it does have some pretty low shear to work with. So what we're watching for intensification are these reds and these purple colors here. What we saw off in the Atlantic is a ton of shear. It really stunted its strength. That's why it remained weak and very disorganized as it continued to track off to the west. But if it can get out into the Gulf, it's got a lot of good, favorable conditions to work with here. Dexter is our next named storm. So if we can name the storm, if it can strengthen, if it can intensify, if it can organize itself, then we will see that next named storm named Dexter the next 5 days, lots of rain across the southern portion of the U.S. There you go, and there's your forecast. Any questions before we end the forecast here? We're good on questions? Perfect. I like whenever we're good on questions, that means I explained it really well. Hopefully, maybe. Tomorrow we have storms off on the East Coast and then across the Tennessee and Kentucky Valley. Friday, no severe risk right now. However, that could change. We often see a marginal risk sneak in there on these quiet days. Taking a look at storms for tomorrow, it does look like it'll become more of a scattered wind event here. So scattered storms are likely as this front continues to track to the east, cooling us down as we head into the end of the work week. And speaking of that cooler air, I hope that you appreciate it now because I do not think that you're going to like our next few graphics. Look at these cooler temperatures as we head into Thursday and Friday. Relaxing, 80s, 90s, we'll take it for this time of the year. As we get into next week, it's hot. We are talking about 90s and triple digits across the central and southern portion of the U.S. We have a really high likelihood to be above average for temperatures this time of the year. So if your average is 92, you're probably going to see 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. It's going to be pretty hot. We are talking about a sweaty forecast as we head into the end of July. So enjoy these cooler temperatures now. Rainfall outlook, pretty decent across the northern portion of the U.S. The Midwest looking to see that day after day after day chance for rain. I did see our 5-day outlook has some pretty impressive rainfall totals in that area. Again, just a reminder on the dates here, this is the 17th through the 21st, so we're talking about the 3rd week of July. And there's your forecast. Thanks for joining us today. I'm hoping to have a better voice tomorrow. It's improving little by little every day. In the meantime, we do updates on our social media pages all the time. So follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, or give us a call if you're interested in a hail, wind, or tornado map. Give us a call at 855-334-4245. Email us at info@hailtrace.com or head over to our website, hailtrace.com. We have meteorologists, I think we have 4, maybe 5 mapping meteorologists in right now who are watching that tornado warning that is ongoing right now. They are mapping it as we speak. And we do that 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we have hail, wind, tornado maps for all the storms yesterday and all the storms that will be coming today. All right, thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we'll see you back here same time, same place tomorrow.